Good morning and welcome to the Business Update segment, where we bring you nothing but the best in the world of business. I am Clement Yabankwe, your host, and today we are going to look at a very topical issue which has to deal with the public debt of Ghana. Have you been wondering why it has increased? Looking at 2022, 2023, and currently 2024, our public debt keeps on increasing. And we are going to look at today its economic impact on our daily activities. But before then, let's get what the Finance Minister said last week when he was speaking to the press. So Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam has reported that Ghana's public debt reached 761.1 billion Ghana cedis as of July 31st, 2024. During the ministry's monthly economic briefing, Dr. Adam noted that this marks an increase from the previous figure of 587.7 billion Ghana cedis. He explained that the rise in cedi terms and the decline in United States dollars were due to the factors such as the depreciation of the cedi, disbursements from multilateral institutions, and domestic budget financing. Dr. Adam also announced that the ministry would soon initiate an exchange offer, a crucial step in the external debt restructuring progress. He emphasized that the government remained on track to meet its debt targets under the International Monetary Fund (IMF) program. Regarding this issue, we will be speaking with an economist to know how this debt issue we have in Ghana, its impact, is it really good? And looking at, are we being election year? Are we supposed to expect more of increment in public debt? Doing this with me is an economist who also is a PhD finance candidate. He's a chartered financial economist and also a chartered accountant. He is in the person of Mr. Martin Ohin-Enim, who will be joining us and speaking with us shortly through a phone-in section. Yeah, hello. So we just want to get from our producer if Mr. Martin is on the line. Good morning, Mr. Martin, and welcome to Clock TV.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me. And good morning to your viewers across Ghana and across the world.
Mr. Martin, we are so grateful having you. And Mr. Martin, I believe you heard what the Finance Minister said last week when he was addressing the press. And according to the Finance Minister, in his statement, paragraph 51, he made a particular emphatic word by saying that the provisional total central government debt at the end of June 2024 stood at 742 billion Ghana cedis. With this statement, Mr. Martin, what do you think? What is your take on this statement? And even our current public debt that has reached 761.1 billion Ghana cedis. What is your take on that?
Yes, once again, thank you. He's right on those debt position. As of June 2024, our debt position was 742 billion, and that's amount about a GDP ratio of 70.2%. Then there was an incremental jump from 742 to 761.1 at the end of July. Now, this on itself is not a bad thing. That all developed economies across the world finance their production and economic growth trajectory by using the likes of the U.S. has a huge debt balance in Japan. But the case is that what are those debts being used for? That is the question we should be interested in. So, for example, is the debt being used to finance production? Is the debt being used to finance growth? Is it used to create buffer to stand as regional stocks or external stocks when those happen in the case of COVID and Russia-Ukraine war? Are we financing critical productive sectors like agriculture, energy, education, supporting industry, providing the needed climate for private sector to thrive, providing jobs and also increasing the income levels of the citizens? If that is the case, then we don't have a problem. Also, another critical thing about debt when you're analyzing is whether the debt is being held by external creditors or domestic creditors. When you look at our current debt profile now, about 61% of the debt is being held by external creditors, those foreigners, and then about 39% is being held by domestic creditors. It means that since a larger portion of our debt is being held by external creditors, what it means is that the government will need the dollar or the foreign exchange to be able to pay those debts when they mature, and that will exert pressure on the world, on the cedi, and cause it to depreciate against the external currencies. Another key thing to measure when you're looking at debt is also looking at the sustainability of those debts. When we talk about sustainability, we are looking at the ability to raise the needed cash flows to pay those debts or pay your debt obligation in terms of the interest and principal when they mature. So so these are the three criteria or metrics. You look at debt issues, you look at what the debt has been used for, what critical sectors have been financed with those debts, who are those holding the debt. If a large portion of those debts have been held by external creditors, it means that the government, the cedi will depreciate against the dollar and other foreign currency, because the government will need to mobilize domestic foreign reserves to be able to pay those debts. So contextualizing this discussion, in the case of Ghana, currently our debt to GDP ratio, based on the 761.1 billion Ghana cedis, our debt to GDP ratio is 72%. That is highly unsustainable. That is why we have gone to subscribe to the IMF program to achieve debt sustainability, which require that we restructure both our domestic and external debt. If you notice from the statement that the finance minister made, he clearly stated that they are going to do a debt exchange, and they are on the path of achieving the debt stability requirement of the IMF program. So there will be a debt restructuring again, because the 761 billion is not a sustainable debt position. If you are supposed to pay those debts, we may have limited resources. After paying wages, after paying interest and principal, we may have limited resources to finance growth and production in the economy and create the needed jobs and income for our citizenry. That is why it is important that those debts were used for production. To the extent that today we are restructuring our debt, is an indication that the accumulated debt that we have made over the period have not been used to support production. Look at the macro economy, just like a private sector. When you spend money, you spend the money purposely to generate profit or to expand your business. The same applies to the government or the central government. When you take taxes and you borrow money, the agenda is to finance growth and make sure that GDP is growing, income levels are growing, unemployment rates are growing, the interest rate is going up to sustain private sector. You are providing the needed climate for the private sector to thrive. So if today our cedi is depreciating, today our debt has ballooned, while GDP is not growing the extent to which we want it, income levels are very low, inflation is high, it tells you that those debts were not prudently used in financing growth activities. That is why we are here and we need to do the restructuring. Now, you ask the question, what does this impact the economy? One, whenever government, currently, if you gradually know, we have been blacklisted from the external market. We cannot go to the external capital market to go and borrow because our debt levels are really high and they are unsustainable. So what the government is doing is to depend on multilateral financiers, just like the IMF program and the World Bank, and also depending on the domestic market by way of treasury bills and the like. So when government comes to the domestic market, hello?
Yes, sir, please, in your statement, you made mention of the fact that we need to know what the debt or the money we go for has been used for. That is point number one. You also make the point that in terms of our debt, we should look at whether it is domestic or external. And based on, so let me speak to the statement of the 2023, what the finance minister presented, based on the 742 billion Ghana cedis. He said that a percentage of, that is 69%, represents external debt. That is the amount of 52 billion Ghana cedis, and in terms of domestic, that is 290 billion Ghana cedis. So in terms of do you think that our debt is still going to increase sake of the depreciation rates we have? And also speaking to the aspect whether the money that we went for as the money we borrowed, has it been used for its rightful purpose?
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, when you look at when your debt, a large proportion of it is coming from the external side, it sends two indications. One is that you don't have enough domestic savings to support government finances in terms of its budget. So, and secondly, it also indicates that when you have a larger external debt, it means that you need to pay by use of the dollar. I get to the point. You need to get forex to be able to pay those debts. So if you are not exporting enough to generate the needed forex, then that will mean that you compete with the local importers who need the forex, and that will exert pressure on the dollar and cause the cedi to depreciate. So one of the high level of external borrowing is that causes your local currency to depreciate because you the external currency, the foreign currency, to be able to pay for your debt obligations. So that is one. Now, can you ask whether were used in production? You see, two good things. When you spend well, the macroeconomic indicators will show same. So, but when you look at today, it's very high, interest rate is very high, GDP is not growing as expected, industry and agri sectors are not as expected, it presupposes that. And to the extent that the tax to GDP ratio is still within 10%, it tells you that the needed that we borrowed over the period were not used in financing growth and activities. That is why today we have to go and restructure the debt to give us some space. You wouldn't if the debts were used to finance activities that would generate the needed revenue to pay for those debt obligations. Do you understand? To the extent that we are going for restructuring, to the extent that we have gone to IMF for bailout, it tells you that the debt that we borrowed over the period have not been used judiciously to generate the needed revenue to pay for those debts. That is why we are going for all this restructuring and things. Are you here with me? And it's indicative in the macroeconomic indicators.
Okay, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. In your submission, you made mention of the fact that multilateral institution also is one of the factor of this public debt. And we remember so well the finance minister mentioned that the increase in debt is partly due to disbursements from multilateral institutions and domestic budget financing. Sir, how should Ghana balance external and domestic borrowing to manage this debt sustainability?
I didn't hear the last bit of it.
So please, I would like to know how should Ghana balance external and domestic borrowing to manage its debt sustainability?
Okay, sure. So what we need to do is you borrow to finance your excess expenditure. Maybe your revenue is not enough to meet your expenditure, so you go to borrow externally or domestically. Now, the challenge in the African economies is that because they don't produce enough, they don't generate enough income to be able to support government financing. So what government does is to do external borrowing. And to the time that we invest in the lives of our people so that they generate income enough and can save things to support government activities, then that will be good for the country. If we don't do that, then what we'll continuously do is to go to external creditors to borrow money from them. Are you getting the point?
Yes, please.
So what government needs to do from now going to the future is to work on the international capital market so that they can have access to forex coming into the economy.
Okay.
So that will bring some stability on the exchange rate. Two, particularly when we are going to an election, we borrow so much and spend to win the election.
Okay.
Deficit, and then in the next after the election year, trying to achieve macroeconomic stability. So the question is that government to control expenditure from now to the end of the year. It is not because of election we will spend beyond our budget. We should work within our limit so that we make sure that the public funds are used judiciously, not for really election purposes.
Okay, sir, I thank you so much for that. Sir, in your submission, you made mention of the fact that the finance minister must understand that there is going to be a new offer of that, the exchange or restructuring of debt. And how effective are such measures in achieving debt sustainability? Do you think that the new structure that they are putting out there is really going to help us achieve this debt sustainability?
Yeah, of course. When you want to achieve debt sustainability, there are two ways of going about it. One, it ultimately means that you are restructuring your debt, but it's two things that you want to do in that. One, what you want to do is to extend the maturities of your debt obligations. So, for example, when you have a debt that's due for 5 years, because you don't have the ability to pay, you then negotiate with the creditor that I want to pay in 10 or 15 years' time. So that can give you some breathing space. You understand?
Yes,
also, what you do in debt restructuring is to also reduce the interest rate that you pay on the loans or the facility. So maybe you are paying, say, 20% on your debt. Then you then say that, oh, because I don't have the ability now, can you renegotiate it and then bring it down to 10% so that I can get some space and be able to discharge the debt obligation? So ultimately, any engagement to restructure the debt of any country, the objective is to achieve debt sustainability. Sustainability in the sense that to have the ability to pay and create some space to be able to finance group-oriented programs. Do you understand?
Yes,
so it ultimately would lead to achieving debt sustainability to the extent that we will restructure those debts.
Okay, sir. So, sir, please, this is my last but one question. So, given the current economic issues we have in this country, do you think that the Ministry of Finance or Ghana is in line, or we are in target of attaining or hitting the target set by the IMF program? Do you think you are in line?
If we continuously borrow and we are not prudent in our public financing, it will delay our progress in achieving such targets. To the extent that as of June, our debt was 742 billion, and debt a month we have moved from billion to 751 billion. It tells you that we continue to our public expenditure, and we shouldn't do that, particularly in this to be prudent, to stay with this budget and not overspend just because we win our election. Nearly in the last 20 seasons, our deficit was over 15%. But the fiscal regime or the law that governs our fiscal regime says that our fiscal deficit will only be 5% of GDP. Okay. But we did more than 50% of GDP in less than 2020. Okay. That tells you how public spend are overrun during electionary years. And if we are to move towards achieving that target, we must stay within the budget limits that we set for ourselves as a country.
Okay, sir. So thank you so much. Before you go, so what is your...
Quickly.
Okay.
Yes.
So, sir,
you continue.
Yeah, so before you go, so I would like to know your opinion. What do you think should be the strategy, the long-term strategy in sustaining our debts as a country?
Now, what we need to do as a country, in the beginning, in the short term, what we are doing is very good to restructure our debt because we don't have the space to be able to pay. Now, the fiscal space that we create after restructuring this debt must be used for productive and growth-oriented activities. For example, what do I mean by that? Support agriculture. If you look at currently what we are facing as a country, domestic food inflation is very high. And income levels are not increasing. So the economic welfare of the people are deteriorating. So what we need to do is that first invest in food production. Let there be luxury of foods on the market so that the prices of those goods will go down. When we get a fiscal space after restructuring our debt, we need to provide the needed investment infrastructure that will spur private investment in the economy. We need to provide the climate that is necessary for foreign direct investment and portfolio investment to come into the economy. We need to support the private sector in the production by providing them loanable funds and decrease government dependable on competing with them for loanable funds in the economy. One of the challenges we have is that to the extent that government is competing with the private sector for loanable funds, what happens is that the private sector will be denied of funds to spare or to support their growth. That will not create employment and that will not create income level.
Okay.
The debt continues. If government continuously to do this, interest rates in the economy will go high.
Okay.
So we pressure on the cities and our ratings by the credit rating organizations will go down. And that will increase our risk premium that in the foreseeable future that external creditors or domestic creditors will give to the country. And that will not be good for us.
Okay,
so government, just be prudent. Use the fiscal space that we need to support group-oriented projects. That is all.
Okay, please, sir. Thank you so much for having you on Clock TV Business Update segment of Cocoa Digest Morning Show. We are so grateful and we hope to have you another day, especially in studio discussion, so we delve more deeper into this very topic. Thank you. That is Mr. Martin Ohene Enim, a PhD finance candidate, and also, as we said earlier, chartered accountant. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. I believe you have come to understand the public debt issues in Ghana, and we'll bring you more of such stories on Business Update segment moving forward. Stay with us all the time. Cocoa Digest will always give you the best. I am Clement Yabankwe. Enjoy the rest of the show with Yaira Awuno.